My mom looked at me and said, "You're making everyone uncomfortable after I refused to leave my house so my sister's family could move in." So I replied, "Then stop making plans for property that isn't yours." My nephew Leo was 10, old enough to know exactly what he was saying, and he said it loud and casual right over the mashed potatoes and gravy. Aunt Amelia said, "I can have your room when we finally kick your mom out," he repeated, taking a massive gulp of his milk, chewing loudly. His little sister, who was 6, let out a high-pitched giggle. The dining room table went weirdly, suffocatingly quiet. It was the kind of silence where you could hear the air conditioner click off in the background. Someone's silver bracelet clinked against a glass. My sister Amelia smirked down at her plate like she had just personally won the lottery. My daughter Mia immediately flushed red. Her cheeks went blotchy, a physical reaction she always had when her anxiety spiked. She looked down at her plate of peas. Then she did what she always did when she was terrified of being a burden or being perceived as rude. She leaned closer to me, her small shoulder pressing against my arm, and whispered so softly that only I could hear. "Are we getting kicked out, Mom?" My hand started shaking under the table. I pressed my cloth napkin flat against my lap, running my thumb over the stitched seams, counting them to ground myself. My throat felt incredibly thick, like I had swallowed a stone. I looked around the room. This was my dining room. These were my ceramic plates. That was my grocery list pinned to the fridge behind me, detailing the exact brand of oatmeal Amelia demanded I buy for her visits. Their heavy casserole dishes sat on my granite counters. Their expensive winter jackets hung on my entryway hooks. The bedroom in question, Mia's bedroom, had a beautiful lavender bookshelf we had built together and a delicate paper chain she had made out of old coloring books. Her name was on that door in sparkling silver letters. Then the silence was broken. I heard Amelia say, "Oh, relax. They know we're just joking." She didn't say it to me. She said it to our mother, Barbara, without even making eye contact with me. Mom gave a tiny dismissive shrug, taking a sip of her wine. My older brother Derek chuckled from the end of the table, shaking his head like the whole concept was just so silly and I was being overly sensitive. Everyone at that table waited to see my face. They waited for me to swallow the disrespect, to laugh along, to keep the peace. Because that was my role. I turned to Mia. I smiled at her, the kind of steady, unwavering smile that mothers perfect when the world is ending. "No, baby," I said, my voice completely steady. "We are never getting kicked out." Then I looked directly across the table at my mother. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I just asked, "Actually, Mom, why don't you remind everyone whose name is on the deed to this house?" Mom's face changed instantly. The smugness vanished, replaced by a tight, pinched expression. Her lips pulled in, her eyes darted nervously toward my front door, then back to my face. A long, agonizing beat passed. You could literally hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Mia peeked up at me, her brown eyes wide. I gently tucked a loose curl behind her ear, picked up the serving spoon, and kept dishing out green beans like I wasn't holding my breath, waiting for the explosion. Amelia's kids quickly lost interest in the tension and started arguing over who got the last dinner roll, but the adults kept their eyes glued to me. They looked at me like I had just placed a live grenade on the table right between the salt shaker and the butter dish. I should have known that exact moment was the entire house of cards beginning to slip. Let me give you some context, because without it, you won't understand the absolute sheer audacity of these people. My name is Maya. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I make my living as a digital artist and a graphic design freelancer. It started as taking small commission jobs at my kitchen table while Mia was sleeping, and eventually it evolved into a massive YouTube channel and a thriving Instagram presence. My short tutorials on how to master digital lighting and shading have over 800,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I have about 400,000 followers on Instagram. I sell custom digital brush packs for $35, and I host a comprehensive $250 online masterclass that keeps my lights on and my savings account extremely healthy. I film everything in my spare bedroom using a ring light and a professional mic setup. It's a modest setup, but it's entirely mine. I am a single mom to Mia, who is 8 years old. I adopted Mia from the foster care system 3 years ago after my devastating divorce. My ex-husband didn't want kids, and when he left, I realized I finally had the space and the love to give to a child who needed it. 2 years ago, right as my channel was starting to truly blow up, I moved into this old rundown bungalow that my grandparents had originally left to my mother. The plan, according to Barbara, was supposed to be a temporary arrangement. "Just help me fix it up, baby," she had told me. "Keep it in the family. You can stay there for cheap while you get on your feet." At the time, I was just intensely grateful that I didn't have to sign a brutal, overpriced lease in the Austin housing market, but the house was an absolute disaster. The roof leaked every time it drizzled. The HVAC system coughed and sputtered like a dying engine, and the plumbing was a ticking time bomb. I put my YouTube money, my sponsorship deals, and every single freelance dollar I could scrape together into fixing this place. A brand new roof cost me $11,500. A new HVAC system was $7,200. Completely redoing the plumbing cost another $4,500. I spent weekends painting the cabinets, sanding the floors, and making it a home. When the renovations were mostly done, Mom came over, looked around, and said, "You have such a gift, Maya." Then, she smoothly suggested that we create a family fund joint checking account for ongoing house expenses. For simplicity, she said, we put both our names on it, and I set up a massive $1,500 monthly transfer on autopay so the mortgage, property taxes, and home insurance would hit without any drama. But I wasn't stupid. I insisted we draw the paperwork up properly. I legally bought the place from her for $32,000, which was the remaining balance on the original mortgage she had taken out years ago. We went to a title company. We recorded the deed. I paid the transfer tax out of my own pocket. I filed the homestead exemption entirely in my name. Mom was sitting right there at the closing table. She even joked with the title agent about keeping the property in the family while I signed the massive stack of paperwork. But despite all the legal documents, she kept a spare key, and she never ever stopped calling it my mama's house. My family has always treated me like the reliable workhorse. I was the adult wallet. I was the one who covered Mom's $300 power bill in the dead of August when the Texas heat was unbearable. That $300 just sat on autopay on my credit card for 2 years. I gave my sister Amelia $4,000 for the down payment on her luxury SUV so her precious boys wouldn't have to squeeze into a sedan. I paid my brother Derek's rent for 4 months straight during a rough patch he had last year. That was $1,800 a month handed over with a casual, "Pay me back whenever you can, bro." I meant it as "pay me back when you're financially stable," but he clearly heard it as, "This is a gift, don't worry about it." I even added everyone to my massive unlimited family phone plan because it honestly cost me less mentally than dealing with their constant complaints about their service being shut off due to late fees. 6 lines, $350 a month, a constant drain on my finances, but it kept the peace. It didn't make me a saint, it just made me exhausted. They tolerated my unconventional career because my career funded their lifestyle. Mom would eagerly clap at my YouTube milestones if a tech company sent me a free iPad or a drawing tablet. But behind my back, she'd roll her eyes and call them Maya's little internet doodles. At Christmas last year, she literally told our Aunt Sarah loud enough for me to hear from the kitchen, "Maya's little videos are actually paying real bills now." Can you believe it? She said this exactly 3 days after she had handed me her $800 property tax bill for her own condo, expecting me to clear it. But the absolute worst part, the part that genuinely built a wall of ice around my heart, was how they treated Mia. Mia was never ever treated like the other grandchildren. Because she was adopted, my family viewed her as an outsider. They never said anything explicitly cruel that you could call them out on directly, but the venom leaked out sideways in a million tiny paper-cut microaggressions. Like when Amelia planned a massive Cousin's Day at the expensive indoor trampoline park and conveniently forgot to add me to the group text. I only found out when she posted a huge gallery of pictures on Facebook with the caption, "All my beautiful babies. Blood is thicker than water." Or the year Mom ordered custom expensive matching monogrammed Christmas pajamas for all the grandkids. Somehow she magically forgot to ask me for Mia's size. When I called her out, she handed Mia a generic, scratchy $10 nightgown from Walmart and said, "Oh, I didn't think she'd care about the monogram, sweetie." At family gatherings, there were always beautifully handwritten, labeled place cards for Amelia and Derek's kids. Mia was always penciled in on a folded paper napkin at the last second like an afterthought. Once Mom wanted a photo of all the grandchildren for her living room mantle. She actually handed her iPhone to Mia, who was 7 at the time, and said, "You take the picture, honey. You're so good with cameras, just like your mom." I stood there holding a tray of appetizers, my blood boiling, and said nothing because I was too terrified of ruining the holiday. But whenever I tried to push back even a fraction of an inch, they punished me quietly. Just last month, Amelia came to me practically in tears. She begged me to put down the $5,000 deposit for her massive kitchen remodel because her contractor needed to book the schedule right now or she'd lose her spot. She swore up and down that she would pay me back the second her husband's annual work bonus cleared. I did it. I swiped my card because I genuinely pictured all of us finally having a nice spacious place to host holidays instead of cramming into her tiny galley kitchen. Then her husband's bonus cleared. But instead of paying me back, they used the money to book a luxury family cruise to the Bahamas. When I confronted her, she casually asked me to cover the second installment of the kitchen remodel too, which was another $5,000. I told her absolutely not, that I needed to look at my own finances first. Things got incredibly frosty after that. When Mia came home from a weekend visit at Grandma's house, she was holding a cheap, flimsy dollar store puzzle. Meanwhile, Amelia's boys had come home with brand new PlayStation 5 consoles funded jointly by Grandma and Amelia. When I glared at Mom, she just sniffed and said, "Well, their father pitched in Maya." She looked at me like I was supposed to take the hint, "Know your place." So when my nephew sat at my dining room table and proudly announced that he'd be taking Mia's room when they kicked me out, it wasn't just a rude kid making a one-off joke. It was the entire toxic pattern spoken out loud. I paid for the roof they were currently eating under. I paid for the food on their plates. And still to them, none of this was mine. We were joking. Leo is a child. He didn't mean anything by it. You cannot cut off your own flesh and blood over a stupid Thanksgiving joke. Her voice was shrill, sharp enough that I knew the neighbors across the street could hear every word. I didn't raise my voice. I leaned closer to the window screen. "I'm not your backup bank account, Mom," I said smoothly, "and I'm not Amelia's ATM. I am Mia's mother. That is my only job. This is our home. It is not shared family property. Please plan to pick up your boxes by December 15th. Her mouth flattened into a thin, furious line. "Amelia's boys are crying." She spat, trying to use guilt as her final weapon. "They don't understand why their Aunt Maya suddenly hates them and is ruining their house. I don't hate anyone," I said, feeling my heart pound against my ribs, "but I will not fund a family that my kid isn't a part of. Do not involve the boys in adult financial matters. Goodbye, Mom." I slid the window shut and locked it. It felt childish to lock the window, but it also felt like the most incredibly adult thing I had done in my entire 35 years of existence. Over the next 48 hours, the fallout was apocalyptic. Amelia called me 14 times in a row. When I blocked her number, she started sending me massive essay-length emails. She detailed how her kitchen was currently a hazardous construction zone, how they had to eat takeout for every meal, and how dare I ruin their family holidays. "How do you expect us to have family dinners at my place if I don't even have an oven, Maya?" She typed in furious, bold letters. I replied with one single sentence. "I won't fund a family my kid isn't a part of." She replied instantly, "Please stop making everything about Rachel. You are so obsessed with making her the victim." I didn't reply. I just archived the email thread. I was entirely done explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. By noon on Saturday, the flying monkeys had been fully deployed. I received direct messages on Instagram from extended cousins I hadn't spoken to since high school, all asking if I was having a mental breakdown. My brother Derek sent me a text saying he was coming over to talk some sense into me. I texted him back, "If you show up uninvited, I will consider it trespassing, and I will call the police." I am not joking. He didn't show up. But then the situation escalated from petty family drama into absolute terrifying insanity. On Monday morning, while I was dropping Mia off at school, my phone rang. It was an unknown local number. I answered it cautiously. "Hi, is this Maya Reynolds?" a gruff voice asked. "Yes, speaking. This is Dave, the contractor working on the Williams Kitchen project. I know you pulled your card off the file, and I respect that, but I need to have a serious conversation with you about the financing agreement that was signed last month." My stomach dropped. "What financing agreement?" I asked, pulling my car over to the side of the road and putting it in park. Dave sighed heavily into the phone. "When your sister and your mother initially hired me, they didn't have the cash up front. They told me you were the primary financial backer. They provided a signed guarantor contract stating that if the credit card payments failed, the remaining balance of the $30,000 remodel would be secured by a lien against a property. A lien against Amelia's house." I asked, my voice trembling. "No, ma'am," Dave said quietly. "A lien against your house. The property on Elm Street. They provided a copy of your deed, your tax records, and a signature that matches the one on your credit card authorization form. If Amelia doesn't pay me the $5,000 by Wednesday, my legal team is automatically filing the lien against your property." The world went entirely silent. The blood roared in my ears. They hadn't just been using my credit card. My mother and my sister had actively conspired to forge my signature on a legal financial document to use my paid-off house as collateral for a luxury kitchen remodel. That was why Mom had been so smug about the family fund account. That was why she had kept copies of the deed paperwork. They believed they owned me so entirely that committing felony fraud was just a casual family errand. Dave, I said, my voice dropping to a dead, icy calm. I did not sign that document. I have never seen that document. I am driving to the police station right now to file a report for identity theft and forgery. I need you to email me every single piece of paper they gave you. Dave paused. Are you serious? They forged it? Send it to me right now, I demanded. He did. Within 5 minutes, I was staring at a PDF on my phone. There it was, a crude, obvious forgery of my signature at the bottom of a contractor's lien agreement. I didn't call Mom. I didn't text Amelia. I drove straight to the Austin Police Department. I walked in, slammed the printed emails, the forged contract, my actual ID, and my authentic deed paperwork down on the desk, and I filed a massive, detailed police report for identity theft and wire fraud. The detective I spoke to took one look at the documents, looked at the timeline, and shook his head. Family cases are always the messiest, ma'am. Are you absolutely sure you want to press charges? This could mean jail time for them. Press them, I said without hesitation. Press all of them. By Wednesday afternoon, the police had paid a visit to Amelia's house. The explosion that followed was nuclear. Amelia's husband, Mark, who had apparently been completely oblivious to the forged lien and thought the kitchen was being paid for by a legitimate bank loan, absolutely lost his mind. When he found out his wife and mother-in-law had committed felony fraud, he packed a bag, took the boys, and went to stay with his parents. He filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Mom was forced to hire a criminal defense attorney. To afford his retainer, she had to sell her beloved luxury sedan and drain her retirement savings. The criminal investigation is still ongoing, but the lawyer informed her that unless she pays Dave, the contractor, the full $30,000 out of pocket to make the civil issue disappear, the DA is likely going to pursue the forgery charges aggressively. The family phone plan officially suspended on December 5th. I watched the lines go dead on my Verizon dashboard. My monthly bill dropped from $350 down to $85. The house got incredibly quiet. And it was a beautiful, profound kind of quiet. The thing about setting massive, life-altering boundaries is that the middle part is actually really boring. You don't have dramatic movie monologues every day. You make rice for dinner, you edit your YouTube videos, you explain to your 8-year-old daughter that sometimes grown-ups act very badly and it is never, ever a child's job to fix their mistakes. You check the front doorbell camera when a slow car drives by, and you actively decide not to panic. I slept better the night I checked the security footage and saw my mother walk up to my door, try the new keypad code, sigh in defeat, and walk back to her rented Nissan Altima. Not great, but better. Mia and I started a new ritual on Sunday nights. She called it Spaghetti Night, saying it with the enthusiasm of a kid announcing a blockbuster movie premiere. I browned garlic in my heavy dented Dutch oven and let the tomato sauce bubble for hours while she set the dining room table with the mismatched colorful plates we had bought at a thrift store. I purposely put 2 extra chairs at the end of the table, leaving them completely empty. It wasn't a stunt, it was just a quiet visual reminder that we had plenty of space in our lives, but only for people who showed up with kindness. Aunt Clara came over the first week without even asking if it was. She brought a massive bagged salad and a white cardboard box full of fresh cannoli from the local Italian bakery. She hugged Mia like Mia was the absolute most important child on the planet. After dinner, Mia grabbed Aunt Clara's hand and gave her a grand tour of her bedroom. The lavender bookshelf, the paper chains, and the brand new paint on the accent wall. We had painted it the previous weekend, just the one wall. She had picked the exact color from one of my digital art tutorials, ocean glass, a deep, calming, beautiful blue. We had laughed until our stomachs hurt when Barnaby the cat tried to attack the paint roller like it was a fuzzy blue mouse. We wiped up the splatters together. The room looked incredible. It looked like a place where someone planned to stay forever. I put the homestead exemption paperwork back into my secure filing cabinet, but I kept a copy of the deed in the top drawer in the kitchen, right next to the takeout menus and the spare rubber bands. I don't keep it there to wave it in anyone's face. I keep it there just so I can reach in and touch it with my thumb sometimes when I'm waiting for the pasta water to boil. Proof. Not for them, for me. Amelia hasn't texted me since the police showed up at her door. Mom sends the occasional pathetic test balloon, a forwarded Facebook joke, or a vague text saying, "How is Mia doing?" with absolutely no apology wrapped around it. I answer only the questions concerning my daughter. Short civil gray rock responses. If they ever mention the legal fees or ask for money, I simply reply, "I am not your bank," and I leave it on read. If they say they miss our family dinners, I reply, "So do we." But family means Mia too. On our third spaghetti night, Mia sat at the kitchen island and drew a picture with her crayons. She walked over and taped it to the refrigerator right over the grocery list. It was a drawing of a little square house with a brown roof. Standing on the green grass were two smiling stick figures and a lopsided yellow tree next to the porch. Above the drawing, she had written in careful, spaced-out letters, just like she practiced on her school spelling tests, "Mom and Mia's house." We went to the local garden nursery the very next day and bought an actual lemon tree, a skinny, fragile little thing with a tag that said Meyer Lemon. We dug a hole in the side yard with a borrowed shovel. The Texas dirt smelled rich and heavy like incoming rain. Mia pressed the dark soil down around the roots with her bare hands, her face smeared with dirt. She looked up at me, the sun catching in her eyes. "Will it stay here forever, Mom?" she asked. "Yeah, baby," I said, my voice thick but completely steady. "It will." I didn't feel triumphant in that moment. I didn't feel like a superhero. I just felt like a mother who had finally heard her kid ask if they were safe and had finally answered with something real, something tangible, something that couldn't be taken away by a bitter family. The house still creaks at night when the wind blows hard against the oak trees, but it creaks like it's settling comfortably around us, not like it's warning us of an impending collapse. When Mia fell asleep that night, she didn't ask me to double-check the locks. I checked them anyway just once, setting the heavy deadbolt with a quiet, satisfying click. Until the criminal trial is over, I'm keeping my life incredibly simple. No yelling, no dramatic speeches, no engaging with the flying monkeys, just a simple, unbreakable rule. I will not fund a family that my child is not a part of. And we have a beautiful blue wall that dried the exact perfect shade my daughter wanted. And we have a lemon tree that in time is going to give us sweet fruit right here in our own front yard. To sum it all up, one might say that to some people, the word family is just a convenient password. It's a phrase they use to skip the checkout line, to bypass accountability, to demand endless sacrifices without ever offering respect in return. I didn't cut off my family over a joke. I stopped subsidizing entitled, cruel people who actively scheduled my beautiful daughter out of the cousin photos, but happily scheduled her mother into their mortgage payments and fraudulent remodeling contracts. There is a very special, terrifying kind of audacity in eating someone's food, sleeping under their roof, maxing out their credit cards, forging their legal signature, and then acting deeply wounded when the bank finally closes and the police show up at your door. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They are just the receipts finally being handed over to the people who racked up the bill.